Hello everyone, so today I want to talk about money. Here in America and probably all the West, I would imagine, money, it seems to be what life revolves around. Uh, but I have seen some major problems with money, so that's what we're going to get into. Also, the solution to human suffering. So, you might not imagine it being so simple as the politicians and leaders and everyone make it out to be so complex, but the way I see it, the simple solution to pretty much all of humanity's problems, or at least the major problems and suffering, is, well, so simple it might just blow your mind. So let's get into it. So anyway, my problem with money is not money itself. It is the bankers that print it and use it to control us. It is the rich that hoard it, particularly the ultra rich that hoard the money while people around them are suffering. And probably more than anything, it's all the people in society today, classify them probably as the elite, who are responsible for teaching us or indoctrinating or attempting to indoctrinate the American masses, probably the whole West, but I'm most familiar with the state of affairs here in this country where I live, so I'll just speak on that. But I'm pretty sure that much of what I'm saying, if not all of it, is pretty close to the reality in the whole Western world. But anyway, it's those people who are responsible for indoctrinating humanity into believing that somehow money is more valuable than life itself, particularly human life, but also animal life and the life of the planet Earth. So, it seems pretty silly to me that, people would think money is more valuable than human life, because if you think about it, people make money. Money doesn't make people. And yet you have this mentality in society today. Our whole society revolves around money. I mean, you can see that everywhere. Just look around. Look at the advertisements. It's basically the foundation of a consumerist society is valuing money above pretty much everything else, including life. You can see it in religion with all the televangelists and, again, on the TV. The TV is a huge problem, but it's everywhere you look. I mean, you've got people like Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, I believe is now the richest man in the world, who makes more money every single minute. It might actually be every single second, but I'm not sure on that. But for sure, more money every single minute than his Amazon employees make in an entire year. And that's just, to me, that's just wrong. And you've got, I think, statistically, where 20% of Americans own 90% of the wealth of the money. So, the problem's easy to see. Look at elections, politics. It's another place we can see where money's being valued so highly. Every single election cycle, you've got the economy as the top issue every single time. Not solving poverty, not ending war, not, numerous other things that you might think might be higher priorities if we were to value life more. But no, it's the economy, because that's what we're taught life revolves around, is money. So you can see the side effects of this everywhere. You can see that in Western society, our lives, most of us, revolve around money, whether we want them to or not. And to me, the more frightening thing is that it's getting so bad that it's blatantly being pushed upon society that money is not only, what everything revolves around, but it's more valuable than life itself. So I'll give a few examples of that. I think truly there is a war on for our minds, and I think also a part of that war is actually a war for our hearts, and it's a war on whether we will value money more than life. And sadly, it looks like those pushing the value of money might actually be winning against those who are pushing the value of life. So it's definitely a battle that's going on. So One personal example of this, it kind of shocked me because this didn't come. I'm quite familiar with people. I've lived around people who are greedy. My definition of greed, I guess, would be people who value money more than human life, or people who love money, who value money pretty much as their top priority, but especially more than life. So I'm familiar with that, and this person, this roommate of mine, he wasn't greedy. He wasn't like that. He cared about money like most people care about money. You got to make money to live. At least that's what we're told. But he wasn't chasing after money. He just normal human. He cared about people. He just wanted to be happy. He just wanted to make enough money. So it was surprising for me to see come from him, for him to admit that he thought a certain amount of money was more valuable, not just than life in general, but his own life. Now, I found that shocking. So the context was back maybe last year, months ago, not sure exactly when, but back when Boeing was having the issue with their planes, they were wrecking. I think they had 2 wrecks, and in America, Boeing wouldn't ground their flights. And so I read this blog post. It was about, they had done the math, and it would cost them, I think, $1 million, or they would lose. They wouldn't really lose it, but they wouldn't make their potential what they would make if they hadn't grounded the flights. So if they did ground the flights, the value of each life on the airplanes that they grounded versus based on how much money they would have made if they didn't ground the flights, I think it came out to over $1 million per person that they would stand to lose if they grounded the flights. And so personally, I found this to be quite disgusting. I mean, how dare they? But it makes a lot of sense. I mean, $1 million per person, and how many people are flying on Boeing? So yeah, it would cost them billions to ground that flight. They would lose billions. So still, it doesn't make it right, but from a monetary standpoint, or economical standpoint at least, it makes sense. It doesn't make it, I found it horribly wrong and disgusting, but it makes sense to me. They're a big corporation. They're all about greed. I mean, they make, how much of the warplanes and whatnot does Boeing make? They're not just in, flying jets around. They're big in the military industrial complex, so they don't care about human life. Really, not at all. Anyway, they were forced to ground the flights eventually, but I think America was the last country that forced Boeing to ground the flights, or maybe they did it of their own volition. I don't remember, but eventually, days after the rest of the world, the Boeing in America grounded the flights. But at the time, they hadn't done it yet, and I was having this discussion with this roommate about this and how I was so angry and it was so wrong that Boeing would do this. And I'm like, because there's no amount of money that's more valuable than like one human life. How is this possible? I mean, man created money. Money didn't create man. And he looks at me and he's like, I think, $1 million is worth more than my life, because I'll never make $1 million in my whole lifetime. So obviously it's worth more than my life. And I just looked at him like, what are you talking about? How can you think this about your own life? At least I can kind of understand how people see it about others. They're selfish, but their own life, like they think $1 million is worth more than your life. And some people might say, well, yeah, because $1 million could, save a lot more than one life versus your one life. So maybe in that sense. But is that what that $1 million is going to do for Boeing? No, they're just going to give it to bonuses for their top executives. So anyway, it's ridiculous, but that's what people, and this isn't, like I said, this isn't even a greedy person. I'd classify him as a pretty standard, typical, caring American. I mean, he might be a little bit, whatever. From my point of view, he's pretty normal American. He's not particularly greedy any more than the average person, maybe less so. I don't know what average necessarily is these days, but he cared about people, and he thought $1 million was worth more than his life. So this is a little shocking, because no matter how much, even let's say $1 billion, will $1 billion bills build you a house? Nope, people do that. What about life itself? Does money give birth? Nope, people do that too. Oh, oops, maybe you could say in the beginning it was God, creator, but either way, it's not money doing that. What about food? It can buy you food, right? Well, yeah, you can use money to buy food, but no amount of money, not even $1 trillion is going to grow you food. Maybe you have to pay people to do that. So again, it's people that grow food, or nature grows food. But again, money doesn't grow you food. People think money makes you happy, brings happiness, but let's look at that in a little more depth. Money, let's see. So it can buy you that fancy toy you want, buy you a new truck. Well, who makes the truck? Does the money make the truck? No, again, that's people. Maybe people use machines, but who designed those machines? Did the money design those machines? No, money didn't design the machines. Money didn't build the factories. Money doesn't do any of that. People do all of it. So it's the most ridiculous thing to think that any amount of money is worth more than any amount of life. I mean, there's nothing that money can do. Money only pays people to do things, and people can do all those things without getting paid. People can grow food without getting paid, and so on and so forth. So enough on that. But it's just absolutely ridiculous. Money can't get you anything that you need or anything that you want on its own. It only does it when someone is willing to give you that for the money, and they only do that because they can use the money as a means to trade it. But the money itself, worthless. It's just worthless paper that bankers print out of thin air, and I won't get much into that. Most people probably already know that thanks to Ron Paul, but the bankers have devalued the worthless paper money by continuing to print it out, and that makes our money worth even less. But despite that, even quote-unquote real money, gold, money that's based on actual value rather than worthless paper, still only has the value that people give to it. It doesn't have any value on its own. Humanity and life has value. The things that grow give us food. The water that flows, that rains, that gives us, water to drink. The air that we breathe, I mean, that's the most basic necessity. We can only go a very, very short time without breathing, and the plants can only go a short time without breathing the carbon dioxide that we exhale, or we'd all die. And money doesn't have nothing to do with the air. Nothing at all. So it's just ridiculous to think that money has value. Its only value is the value we place on it. So to put more value on money than human life is just absolutely insane. But that's the way the world's going. So here's another example to show maybe the indoctrination. But it's everywhere, and it's definitely in the entertainment industry. So I remember, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, there was 2 songs on the country station. I remember 2 hits. One of them, I think the name is Could Buy Me a Boat. Anyway, that one was very much like pushing the idea that money was everything, and there's even a line in there that explicitly where the guy said, I wish I had an uncle who would kick the bucket, I think is how the line went, who was sitting on a pile like Warren Buffett. So basically, he wished his uncle had died so that he would have money, $1 million. And that's the whole point of the song was, oh, it might not buy happiness, $1 million might not buy happiness, but it can buy me a boat, and it can buy me, stupid song, really stupid song. But it was popular. And right at the same time of this song, there was another song, I think, called Trailer Hitch. Pretty much the exact opposite message. Basically, the point of that song was the guy never seen a hearse with a trailer hitch. Meaning you can't take what you buy. You can't take the things that money buy with you when you go. And the whole point of that song was give it away. Just give it away because you can't take it with you when you go. And the other song, yeah, but it could buy me a boat. It could buy me a truck to pull it, and so on. It's stupid song. I even thought the tune was obnoxious. It could buy me beer, buy all the things that they push on TV. Buy me beer, buy me a fancy cooler, buy me this, buy me that, buy me. It can buy me stuff, buy me lots of stuff, make me happy. Even though he admits it might not make me happy, but it can buy me happiness. Basically what he's saying. Pretty contradictory, but point I wanted to point out with that song is that there's a line in that song where he explicitly said he wished he had an uncle that died, so a rich uncle that died so that he could get rich. That's ridiculous. And so they're pushing this in the media, and they're pushing it in the entertainment. And the sad thing about that is those two songs were both hits approximately the same time, about 4 or 5 years ago. At least I heard them both being played frequently on the radio at that time. One of the songs faded into oblivion, never to be played again. One of them, to this day, well, to the day I left Montana a couple months ago, when I would have the radio on, it would still play rather frequently. Guess which song is the one that's still playing? That's right, the one pushing the materialistic greed. The one pushing money over life. The one pushing sharing? No, I never heard it play after that first year. And looking on YouTube, one of them has about 1 million views. One of them, I believe, has like 111 million views. Bet you can't guess which is which. Yeah, that's right. The one with over 100 million views is the one pushing greed, and the one pushing sharing with humanity, sharing with your neighbor. Yep, that's the one that only has 1 million views. So I don't know if that really says anything to which side of this war, humanity or money, the valuing of life or money is winning, but it looks pretty dire from my point of view that the side that's winning is the one pushing the valuing of worthless paper over actual life on actual human life. So anyway, quick to the solution. So what's the solution to this problem? Obviously the problem is valuing money more than human life, and I would say hoarding money, and obviously the bankers, but there's not much we can do about the bankers. But there is something that we can all do, that we do have influence over, and that's ourselves. We have influence over how we spend our money and whether or not we seek money. So what's the solution to all the suffering? Well, it seems pretty simple. It's simple. Share. You just share. It's like written that John the Baptist, the forerunner of Jesus all the way 2,000 years ago, said when people came to him and asked what they should do, he said, to the man who has 2 coats, give one to the one who has none. It's super simple. He didn't say give all your coats away. Just if anyone has excess, share the excess with the people who have less than you. It's that simple. And I see it everywhere I go. I've noticed it for years. But it's like Tupac says. Back 20 some years ago, he was in an interview and he saw the same problem. He was like, it's straight up wrong that there's people that got 10 rooms in their house, 10, 20 rooms, talking about like celebrities. And there's people that got no rooms. There's people that got 2 homes, 3 homes, 4 homes, 5 homes, 6 homes. There's people that have no homes. And it's wrong. It is wrong. He was right. He wasn't the first one. I mean, just like I pointed out, 2,000 years ago, even before that, Pythagoras saw the problem. His disciples shared everything with each other. They joined a community where none of them had their own possessions. Everything they held in common and they shared. So people have known the solution for a long time. It's really simple solution. And how many people have more money than they need? Probably most people in America. Numbers in a bank account. Worthless. They're just numbers. They could delete those numbers at any time. I mean, they print the numbers. They print the money out of thin air. They print the numbers into the bank accounts, into their bank accounts, out of thin air. That's all it is. It's just numbers on a screen. It's not anything real. It's fake money anyway. So, but people are scared, so they don't want to share that extra money they got. They gotta save it up buy a house. Gotta save it up. Buy this. Gotta save it up for security. Some people, it's not even because they want to buy more things. It's just because they want this feeling of security. Oh, what if I lose my job? I won't be able to pay rent if I don't have like an extra money in the bank. And it's just the way we've been taught, but it's wrong, because why we gotta be so scared about the future? We might not even live that long to that point when we lose our job, and that's a figment of our imagination. We might lose our job, we might not lose our job, we could find another job anyway. So we're worrying about things that are in our imagination while there's actual people around us living on the street. There are actually children starving in this country, and then way worse in Africa, in the Middle East, in Yemen, where our tax dollars are, paying to genocide them, and all over, everywhere outside of this country. Maybe some other Western countries are okay too, but that's just the way it is. So we're freaking out. We're worrying about these things that may or may not happen in the future, but we're not willing to look at what we can actually do right now to things that are actually a problem in the present. Right now, there's people that don't have a shelter over their head. Right now, there's people that are starving. And right now, we're worried about what may or may not happen a month from now, 2 months from now, a year from now. We're worried about paying off a mortgage 30 years down the line. And there's people that don't know if they're going to get dinner tonight. So it seems pretty basic, seems pretty messed up, but that's just the Western society. So the answer is simple: share. And another way I've seen it, like I mentioned with the houses, like Tupac said, but I've seen it, people got 2 houses. Instead of sharing a house, they don't have to give it away. Maybe just let some people live there for free. But no, they got to rent it out, because that's what you do. If you have 2 houses, you rent the other one out. You have 10 houses, you rent 9 of them out, maybe 5, and the other 4 are vacation homes. It's disgusting. There's people that are on the street. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. It's simple sharing. I mean, it's not that hard to share, but apparently for most Americans it is pretty difficult. We'll make up excuses left and right as to reasons why to not give some money to a bum on the street begging for money, or even someone who's not begging but still needs it. Oh, it's their fault. They're lazy. They're an alcoholic. They're going to use that money on booze, or they're probably crackhead, or you don't know that. They might be. But you're still selfish if you want to use that as an excuse, because the statistics actually show that the majority of homeless people, they're not homeless because of drugs. They're homeless because of bad circumstances that all of us in the middle to lower classes can face. And it's only that upper 20% that really don't have to worry about it at all. So if you're not in that, upper class, maybe think less about worrying about things that can happen to all of us, any of us, at any time, and start actually worrying about the things you can actually do to help change it. So, anyway, I guess I'll share one last quick story that kind of puts this into... Well, no, one more thing I've noticed with campers. Another symptom of this problem is, people have a house. Doesn't matter, nice house, not so nice house, pretty nice houses, all of them around here compared to houses in Africa, where I also grew up. But that's another story for another time. People got campers. Nowadays, the campers they make nowadays are like nicer than a lot of apartments. And people have these campers for what? They use them a couple weeks in the fall to go hunting, or maybe a week here, a couple days there in the summer to go camping. They use them to vacation in. And there's people that, that'd be a nice home. There are actually people that live in rundown apartments. It actually is a nicer home than they live in. And then there's people that don't even have a roof over their head. And I've seen it everywhere I've gone on this trip. It's like, it doesn't matter, rich town, poor town, all the houses, seems like it's not everyone, but it's like every other house has a really freaking nice camper parked there. Something wrong with this picture, man. Like, why don't you just get a tent if you want to go camping? How is that even camping when you have this like 30 to 40 foot long camper with nice floors and a microwave and flat screen TVs? And I don't know if you guys have seen the campers nowadays, but it's literally, they're nicer than a lot of apartments I've seen, and people have these to vacation in, and it's really sad when you see the solution and you're not one of those people that has that kind of money. So I guess what I'm trying to do, instead of share the little money I don't really have, I do share money as much as I can. I share with people, but it's not about me, and it's not good to wish that you had more. You can wish, but whatever. That's being content is what I'm getting at. It's good to be content wherever you're at, but if you have extra, it's good to share it, and that would simply solve the world's problems. If everyone had a house, if everyone who had 2 houses shared a house with someone who had no house, there'd be no homeless people. Probably if people, just people who had campers that don't use them except for vacations gave their campers away to homeless people, then there'd probably be no homeless people. Like, it's that simple. It's like, if you have more than you need, share the excess with people who have less than you or people who don't have anything. Suffering would be over in an instant. It's like this other YouTube channel I've seen here and there. John St. Julian, he says it's pretty much the same thing, but he uses these words. He says, the solution to all the world's suffering, it's already there. It's numbers and bank accounts that are just sitting there instead of being used to help those who are suffering. And it's that simple. So I'm just going to end this post with a quick little story of Jesus told that was not put into our Gospels. It's from the Gospel of the Hebrews, or what they called in the early church the Hebrew Gospel of Matthew. So anyway, it's the story of the rich man, or a story of a rich man that came to him and asked him what he should do to have life, eternal life, I'm assuming. And he answers him. He says to do the law, to fulfill the law, keep the law, perform the law. And the man says, I have. So Jesus says to him, like he says in the stories we're probably all familiar with here in the West, he says, sell everything you have, give to the poor, and come follow me. And the man, he was not happy with that. He was confused. He started to scratch his head in bewilderment to why he should have to do this. So Jesus looks at him and he's like, how do you say that you've performed the law, you've fulfilled the law? Why do you say this? When the law itself says you gotta love your neighbor as yourself, and here you are with plenty. And look at your fellow neighbors, your brothers, your own brothers, fellow sons of Abraham, all around you, clad in filth, starving, in your house that's filled with many goods, and there's absolutely nothing goes from your house to them. And then, I believe, just like in the story we're used to, he looks at his disciple Peter, and he says it's hard for the rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. But in that story, we get the idea of why, and maybe of what this whole kingdom is. It is heaven. See, because if all the rich people who had all this excess goods, forget loving your enemy. I mean, that's obviously the higher good, but you got to start by loving your own neighbors. If you can't even love your own people like you would love yourself, if you've got this much excess and you're not even willing to share it with the people who are suffering all right around you, right next to you, your own color, your own race, then how on earth is there ever going to be heaven on earth? Anyway, that's what I think Jesus came here to talk about, show us how to make heaven on earth. I don't think it has anything to do with where we go when we die. I think heaven and hell are realities that we live in here. And suffering is hell, and the lack of suffering, joy, peace, happiness, that's heaven. And if we want to create heaven, it's really, really simple. The people who have multiple, extra, abundance of things share with those who are lacking. And it's really that simple. So anyway, share more, do random acts of kindness, and if everyone took that advice to heart, no one would be starving. No one would be without a roof over their head. And there'd be no war either, but that's a whole nother topic. So anyway, hope you found this video informative. We might not be able to, bring down the banking cartels, but if enough of us just start to share the extra that we have, I think we go a long way towards creating heaven on earth. Anyway, peace, guys. Have a good one. Till next time, this has been Jason.